What's going on? How you doing? My name's David the Crook and welcome to today's video of Mixing Monday, where every Monday I drop a video relating to mixing or mastering, whether it's vocals, beats, ad-libs, anything in general that falls into mixing and mastering. Today's video is about mixing dubs, ad-libs, harmonies, just adding movement to those background vocals just to bring more fullness onto your songs and just add movement, add like life, add more dynamics into your songs. I have a song here. It is called Pipe Down by the official Izzy. I'll put the link to the song in the description so you could check out the full song. This beat is produced by me, so if you're looking for beats, I'll also link my website down below in the description so you could go check out my beats.
I got big money moves I've been trying to make. Big money moves, but there's risks you gotta take. Money to be made, everybody loves you when you getting paid. They been sleeping on me, but I'm still awake. That's right, son. Better watch out, cause I might come whipping in that caddy with no license. Windows down, skirt, skirt, hop out, break his neck like Mike Tyson. Homie, he was hella trifling, but I pipe down, we might blow 100 rounds. They want my head, I know. Whip packed out with the big fofo. Everybody to the floor. If it's money on the table, say less, it's a go. Tell me what's the move and tell me right now. I'ma let it blow and let my brother slide down. Speaking on my name, gotta tell him pipe down. Pipe down, pipe down, pipe down.
That's part of the verse and part of the hook. On the hook, there's a harmony, and then just on the regular, it's just dub and ad-libs. When it comes to mixing dubs, ad-libs, and harmonies, one thing you want to keep in mind is where you're placing them. So for example, for this song, I have the dubs, I have one to the left and then one to the right. So I have left, right, and that's kind of like a normal way of doing it. That's kind of what everybody does. But for the ad-libs, something I like doing is if the ad-libs are just going to be in the middle, I don't want it to be necessarily in the middle because then it starts clashing with the vocals. So one thing I do is just to add movement is I like adding a plugin like this. This is from Waves and this is like Mondo Mod, I guess you could say. And what this is going to do is it's going to move the vocals left and right. So if I were to solo it,
big money moves, big wrist, huh?
and then just pretty much goes left and right. If you don't have this plugin and you're looking for a free plugin, another cool one to use is a plugin by Cable Guys and it's called Pancake 2. It's going to do the same thing. You could do a little bit more stuff like that where like get creative on the design you want. Moving the vocals, one thing you want to keep in mind is having some sort of movement in the vocals if you don't want it just to stay in the middle. I could have also chopped this up and then just move the one left and right and then just counter to it. So for example, if this one's going left, I would have moved this one to the right, and then this one goes to the right, I'll move this one left. Doing it just make it wider. So for example, like here on the hook, if I were to play the hook,
they want my head, I know. Whip packed out with the big fofo. Everybody to the floor.
I did the same thing for this harmony. I have this harmony in the bottom moving left and right, and then I have this one to the right and one to the left. But for the ad-libs, I did a wider spread, I did a wider pan. For the hook, just in general, one thing I do is I keep the vocals in the center, I keep the dubs one to the left and one to the right, but I don't pan it too much. Well, here I have 17 and this one's 24. I don't keep the same numbers because I like adding like some sort of like width to it. Like I don't like keeping the numbers the same. If this one's at 17, I'll put this one at 20, or sometimes I'll go even smaller. I'll go for like a 10 or 9. And then for the ad-libs, I do go wider just because those are the things that are going to be pushed back a little bit more to the back. For the harmonies, I did do those a little bit closer than the dubs just because the harmonies are what's going to make the vocals feel fuller. So I don't want to pan it too much. I keep the harmonies closer to the main vocals just to give it that fullness. So when those harmonies do come in, it just makes the vocals feel fuller. And then I have this bottom one moving left and right. I don't suggest adding too much movement, but having certain elements in the dubs or the ad-libs moving does add a lot to your beat. That's one thing I like doing when mixing ad-libs or mixing dubs or mixing harmonies is I like to add some movement. I do pan it left and right. The numbers honestly don't really matter. It's just depending on what feel you're going for. When the dubs come in, I want to give it that fuller feeling. The harmonies are more important for that fuller feeling, so that's why I pan the dubs a little bit more for this particular song. But if there's no harmonies and it's just like, for example, dubs and ad-libs, then I'll do like dubs closer and then the ad-libs white. I honestly don't really do anything different when it comes to the actual mixing and the mixing of the vocals. I always mix the vocals in general, and then I just copy and paste all the plugins. The only difference I do, so for the dubs, one thing I do add is an EQ, and I use the EQ just to cut out those low frequencies and a bit of those high frequencies. That way they don't necessarily clash with the main vocals. So if I were to play the main vocals,
big money moves, but there's risks you gotta take. Money to be made, everybody loves you when you getting paid.
what this is going to do is going to smooth out that low end. That way there's not a lot of low end, especially if he's going to come in like pretty hard. A lot of that low end does build up, so we want to be careful and just kind of cut out some of that low end. I also do that to the ad-libs, but the difference between the dubs and the ad-libs is for the ad-libs I do cut out a bit more just because I want the ad-libs to be smooth, and then I bring out some of that the high mids, and that just gives it more of that like telephone effect.
Big money moves, get the big fofo.
And I also cut out some of the highs, but not too much of the highs compared to the dubs. And that's one thing you want to keep in mind is when you're mixing dubs, ad-libs and harmonies is the way you're EQing. I just add this to the end. That way I'm just cutting out those frequencies that I want. Another thing I like doing to add to my ad-libs and to my dubs is I like adding some sort of spreader. On the dubs, I have a spreader. I spread out to 120. So not only does it pan it, but then with this wave plugin, it's going to push it out a bit more. That way it gives everything room. For the main vocals, I always spread it, but I have it spread at 115, and then I do the dubs at 120, ad-libs like at 130, and then the harmonies 125. So I'm going up by increments of 5. You don't necessarily have to go up by 5. One thing you want to consider when mixing dubs and ad-libs is adding a bit more de-essing. When the dub or the ad-lib comes in, those S's and those frequencies do build up. So for example, it could get a little harsh. So I always like adding a bit more de-essing onto the dubs and the ad-libs and the harmonies. And not only that, but I like adding a lot more delay and a lot more reverb. That way it just pushes the vocals a bit back, and then the delay just adds movement. If I were to solo everything out, it would sound like this.
That's sick, watch them hurl, watch them hurl. They want my head, I know. We're packed out with the big fofo. Everybody to the floor. There's money on the table, say less is a go. Tell me what's the mood, tell me right now. I'ma let it blow and let my brother slide down. Speaking of,
each vocal has its own place within the song. I don't necessarily add a lot more. For example, for the hook, I did add more reverb to make the hook feel wider, but in general I always add more reverb and more delay. That way just it gives it more movement. The delay keeps the dub going, so that way it's not just a dub and then boom, it's just dead silent. The delay kind of carries on the dub for the next one. The amount of delay you add, it all depends on you. For example, for this song I did 1/8 delay. You can always use 1/8, 1/4, just depending on the type of song and what feel you're going for. Like I said, you just want to give it its own place, whether it's panning it left and right, adding movement, add a bit more de-essing, and then add an EQ to cut out some of those lows, come out some of those highs, and if you want to give it that telephone effect, then boost up some of the upper mids, and then add more reverb and delay. Like I said, I'll put the link to the song down below in the description, and also a link to my website if you're looking for beats. Now if you want to get your song mixed and matched by me, feel free to hit me up on Instagram or on my website. Now if you haven't seen me cook up live on Instagram, I am hopping on Instagram a lot more, just cooking up beats, mixing songs, mastering songs. So if you have any questions, feel free to hop on Instagram live with me, ask me a question. I could honestly just answer your question right then and there. That way you're not waiting for a response. Now I want to remind you to subscribe and drop a like. See you in the next video of Mixing Monday. My name's David the Crook. Peace.